Attorney General Jeff Sessions speaking out against sanctuary cities in Miami today, announcing that Miami-Dade is now in compliance with federal immigration laws and is eligible to receive federal law enforcement grant dollars. Although he had some harsh words for the city of Chicago, in particular Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who he says is putting his city at risk of losing federal funding and contributing to crime. Take a listen.
For the sake of the city, Chicago's leaders need to recommit to policies that punish criminals instead of protecting them. The Department of Justice will not concede a single block or a single street corner in this United States to lawlessness, drugs, and crime.
So here now to react is Jay Sekulow. He is American Center for Law and Justice Chief Counsel and President Trump's attorney as well. He went on to make the comparison talking about 4th of July weekend and saying that the city of Chicago had 100 shootings and 15 homicides. It is, of course, a sanctuary city. Miami-Dade also had a record number, a historic number, which was 0. Is that a fair comparison? I mean, they're very different cities.
Well, they're different cities, but I think, look, what the Attorney General is talking about is a problem that really exists, and that is you're looking at cities that are almost become war zones. And Chicago, unfortunately, and I lived in Chicago for a number of years growing up, and what it's become is very, very difficult for the citizenry. So what the Attorney General said today, which makes absolute sense, is that they are going to apply the federal law. And for cities that are not complying with federal law, including sanctuary cities, they're not going to be eligible for funding. That's not, by the way, a hard constitutional issue. That's called a condition on funding, and that the Supreme Court has recognized that time and time again as a valid function of government.
So people who are arguing against this move say that what you're doing is really just making it hard on police officers in that city because they're being denied the funds. They don't have any control over what their mayor decides or what their mayor's politics are. But by withholding the funds as a result of what their mayor is doing, that you're hurting the police force and the very people that are out there trying to protect citizens. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's the mayor that would be hurting the police department, because all the mayor would have to do is come in compliance with federal law. It comes into compliance with federal law. What happens? Then the funds are released. By the way, these are federal funds. The state funds or the city funds are available subject to the city's own conditioning. But the idea that the federal government has to acquiesce into a violation of a law by a city is ridiculous, in my view, and legally indefensible. So while I completely support the police and the efforts of the police, especially in any city, but especially those that are in subject to the situations like Chicago, I think you've got to utilize, the federal government has the right to utilize its authority to make sure cities are in compliance with federal law. And that's all that the General Sessions is saying here. It's rather, I mean, I know it's a big issue, but it's rather legally unremarkable. And I don't mean to trivialize it, but the police, if they're being penalized, they're being penalized because their own local government officials are violating federal law.
Moving on to another big topic, the FBI is reopening your Freedom of Information Act request into the tarmac meeting of former Attorney General Loretta Lynch and former President Bill Clinton. What can you tell us about this?
Well, it was a big development because the FBI first told us they had no documents that were relevant to the inquiry, and that was the meeting between Loretta Lynch and former President Clinton. But we sent the same request to the Department of Justice. They didn't respond. We went to federal court and got a court order requiring the release of documents. And what happened there was, in the course of going through those documents, we saw exchanges between, guess who? The Department of Justice and the FBI. And, of course, the FBI said they had no documents. So we were going back into federal court to get additional documents, but the FBI, realizing that they have created quite a difficult situation for themselves, reopened the investigation, the FOIA inquiry, for more information on the Loretta Lynch-Bill Clinton meeting. And by the way, we learned today, as we're going through all these documents, they're voluminous, that in fact there was outside, it wasn't just intergovernmental, DOJ to FBI, but even the Washington Post to the FBI about this very issue with former Attorney General Lynch and former President Clinton. So the reality is the FBI is now going to have to come clean on this, and I suspect it's not something that they wanted to have to do. Obviously, they denied the request in the beginning. Now they're being compelled to. For a layperson, I mean, explain to me what you're looking for, because my perception is, maybe he got onto the plane, maybe they had a conversation that they shouldn't have, where he said, whatever about the upcoming case. Why would there be a document that would reveal, that would be the smoking gun about that conversation? It seems like it was a conversation between two people. Yeah, so the whatever could be is exactly that. We have, for instance, documentation that shows a lengthy email of what's called talking points for what they wanted to explain that took place. Now, remember, Loretta Lynch ended up giving that 1 or 2 sentence statement about, we talked about golf and grandkids, but yet there's a 3-page email that is the final talking points that the Justice Department wanted to get out. Now, they've redacted those. In other words, they have blocked them out. We know the email exists because they gave us that, so we're going back into federal court, and that's the chronology of exactly what happened on that aircraft. Granted, it was 2 people's conversation. One of the people happened to be the current Attorney General of the United States. The other happened to be the former President of the United States, whose wife was being interrogated or questioned by the FBI that very weekend. So I think the American people have the right to know, and so far the courts have agreed with us.
Very interesting. Jay Sekulow, thank you.